Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Plotting Your Virtual Event Strategy for 2021 and Beyond. I'm your host, Steve Vonder. I'm a senior analyst with Wainhouse Research, and today I'm going to be joined with a couple of executives from one of the pioneers and leaders in the virtual event marketplace, Six Connects. Let's say a quick hello. First, Ruben Castano, CEO of Six Connects. So, Ruben, where are you joining us from today?
I am joining you from nice, what was supposed to be a warmer South Texas, but I'm joining you from San Antonio, Texas, Steve.
Well, we got a Lone Star contingent here. I'm coming from Dallas, but I think our other panelist today is a little bit outside the Lone Star state. Joakim Jonsson, tell us what your role at Six Connects is and where you're joining us from.
Yeah, hi Steve. Thank you for the opportunity to join you here. I'm joining from not a very sunny at all London, but maybe that should be expected.
Yeah, we got a transcontinental presentation today, so I really appreciate both of you taking the time, and we appreciate Six Connects sponsoring this webinar to share some thought leadership regarding the fast-moving world of virtual events. Now, before we get into our content, I want to do a little basic housekeeping, answer some questions we frequently get during these types of presentations. First of all, if you're joining us on November 10th, you're seeing us live, and certainly we encourage you to interact with us and submit questions all along the way. But if you want to share this presentation with colleagues or others that you think need to see the content that we're going to be talking about today, know that there will be an on-demand replay of this event available. Each registrant to this particular event will receive a link to access that on-demand archive at the conclusion of today's events. And as I said, we definitely want this to be an interactive session above all else. We're on the Zoom platform here, so there is a Q&A button. If you hover over the navigation bar, click on Q&A, submit your questions. We'll try to address them during the course of our conversation today, or we do have a Q&A section dedicated at the end of the presentation as well, where we'll be tackling some questions. If you do happen to be watching on demand, know that you can still reach out to us and submit your questions. Just email them to marketing@sixconnects.com, and the folks at Six Connects will get you the answers that you're requiring based on your query. But as we look at the role of virtual events today, one of the things we have to recognize is that really virtual events, the idea of holding an online event that can bring a gathering of people together has been an overnight sensation, literally 10 years in the making. Companies like Six Connects literally have been offering platforms that enable virtual event capabilities for more than a decade. But due to circumstances surrounding the COVID pandemic and its impact on conferences, trade shows, and really all types of corporate and individual gatherings, we've had to kind of change our habits on the fly. And that's reflected in some survey results that literally came from the field last week from Wainhouse Research. We surveyed 2,101 end users to gauge their usage, deployment, and perceptions of video and business communications. And one of the things we asked was, hey, how do you use video in a wide range of marketing applications? And what we found that during the past year, virtual events have become more popular than any other form of outbound video-enriched marketing application. 43% of those surveyed say that their organization has implemented virtual events during the past year, and another 27% of those we surveyed say that their organization is considering the implementation of virtual events in 2021. So Ruben, Six Connects has been involved in this market for a long time. How have you seen the changes or the situation surrounding COVID and the pandemic impact the way people use virtual events in the past 6 to 9 months or so?
Steve, well, I can definitely give my opinion on this. It's kind of a crazy thing, right? Because ultimately we started in the journey pre-pandemic around what was probably a niche industry per se, but ultimately the value has always been there, right? So it was a niche industry, but the customers or the users that were a part of it were recognizing the value associated with implementing a kind of virtual environment, and the analytics that can be leveraged there and actionable for whether it's for commerce or for broad communications, et cetera. And so what the acceleration of the pandemic has provided to us and frankly most of the world is a requirement to shift into this. And very much the beginning of the pandemic in the beginning of the summer was very much just a replacement of a physical event, right? So that was the original wave of organizations trying to look, I had this thing planned out for 9 months, and what can I do over the next 2 months to replace that given event? And frankly, trying to fit it into the way the physical event was structured. And what we're slowly seeing now as organizations are seeing this now more as a long-term approach and recognizing the value. So as the addressable market increases, the learnings associated with it are on the same plane, right? So now you're seeing organizations not really looking at a virtual environment experience as a replacement, but frankly, chasing the strategic, because now the opportunities are endless of what you can do and what you can gather. And the industry is learning some of those things. And we look forward to leading and pacing the way to opportunities that you may have used use cases like this in the past. The opportunities are endless as we move forward and as organizations begin to understand the value.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the in-person meeting is never going to go away. Once we solve the pandemic issue, there's going to be in-person meetings and trade show conferences and the like. But I think what we've seen, and I'd be interested in your input, Joakim, on this, is that literally people have been exposed to online video enriched virtual events and finding out that this really is a good way to extend your engagement and communications interaction with your relevant target audience. And so you're actually a couple months ahead of us over in Europe, Joakim, and actually, you've probably been dealing with this more since January, as opposed to us in North America, who've been looking at the situation since March. What have you seen? And being a couple more months ahead of the curve of us, maybe what should we expect in terms of perceptions of virtual events as we go through this process?
Yeah, I think I've been in this industry for a long time, online events, virtual events, webcasting since '99. So dinosaur at this stage. But I think what I've seen, there was a really an early sort of feedback on a lot of companies coming to us and saying, "No, we should have thought about this sooner, but we have never gotten around to doing the virtual event. We've been interested, but nothing has really triggered us to make that final steps." Although we've been convinced that that step should be taken at some point. So I think what the situation with the pandemic has done, that has been the catalyst to actually allow people to finally take that step. What is then interesting is that, of course, physical meetings won't go away. Virtual conferencing is not the same as physical conferencing, but the feedback that we're getting is that also virtual event is the fears that people had, that people could not network and they were just about sort of watching a webcast and that was it, that it was very one way, not very engaging. That's not true at all. And we're seeing our clients being increasingly creative with what they can bring into their virtual event and really play to the strength of virtual rather than to try to replace like for like, but think about sort of, we can now reach more people, we can do an engagement that is longer, just not over 1 day or two days, but we can actually allow people to come in at the time when it suits them. So I think that is my main takeaway, is that the pandemic has been a catalyst for a lot of companies to take this step. And what the fears was in the market about what the shortfall of virtual has not really been the case. People are positively surprised. People see that you can really be creative and create a very engaging experience.
Yeah, and I think that if you write the story of 2020 when it comes to virtual events, it's all about knocking down misperceptions and understanding the role that virtual event technologies can play in extending that interaction and engagement with audiences. And I guess the question that you have to ask yourself is why are people flocking to these virtual events during the pandemic? And what are the features or attributes that really make a difference when it comes to delivering value in the virtual event environment? And the overwhelming result that we found from Wainhouse research survey results, again from the field just last week, is that really people see video as a tool that fosters engagement. We asked a pretty basic question to respondents who've experienced live video online for business applications, saying agree, disagree. Live video enhances viewer engagement with an online presentation. You have 39% of those surveyed saying they strongly agree with that statement. 44% saying they somewhat agree. So overall, you got well over 4/5 of the audience saying that yeah, we see the engagement that comes from using that technology. And Joakim, what is the secret sauce here? Why you walk me through the whole notion of engagement and why video in the virtual environment really adds that extra element that kind of pushes it over the top for the virtual event to really be that truly memorable experience.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that it's engaging and you can interact in a multiple different ways. So we often speak about that we have 3 layers: a visual layer and an interactive layer and a data layer. And it's that second layer, the engagement layer, that allows people to interact, not only sort of providing the attendees with a list of webcasts and saying you can sort of start to watch from A to Z, but the ability to tailor it to what you want to do, the ability to go and speak to experts one-on-one, to speak in groups, the ability to network peer-to-peer and find other attendees that are there with a similar interest that I have. So I think that's the absolute sort of, if there's one thing to say, it's the fact that it just delivers engagement on a completely different level than what you see with any other forms or any other tools such as webcast or web conferencing tools. Or also, it's the fact that it's engaging on multiple levels.
Yeah, Ruben, do you have thoughts on why video enriches the online experience so much?
Well, it's Joakim said it very well, and I'll add to the fact that the user can engage at their pace, on their own time, on demand, etc. And you're not limited to a set time frame as you would in a normal situation in a physical environment. So relative to the secret sauce, look, Steve, ultimately that's the name of the game, is how do you enhance the product and the experience all around engagement. If we can create engagement tools via AI and other mechanisms, that will then allow us to ingest more audiences, ingest more content, ingest more activity, allow for the analytics that are actionable and can be useful towards whether it's commerce or whatever the future state would be. So the major area in our industry that we have to continue to enhance on is in that engagement.
Yeah, so we do have one question coming in from the audience that I want to bring into the conversation right now. This individual they've gone virtual in the past, and sometimes they've had a difficulty in convincing their clients that the ROI and the engagement is there with virtual events. They ask, how can we change this perception, knowing that exhibitors haven't had good experiences in the past in the virtual space? What's different now in terms of the improvements of the technology, the way we blend these capabilities, perhaps even individuals' experience and exposure to connected video in this environment? Why should people who have looked at virtual events in the past take a second look now?
I think I can sort of answer from my personal experience, having been in this game for a really long time. If we would have had this webinar a year ago, I think we would have done it audio with slides. And many of my customer meetings, a year ago, I did them and I did not turn on my camera. And I see so many cases now that people are okay with turning on their cameras. So there's a true change, I think, in people's behavior in terms of what they are expecting when they come to a virtual event, and what their experience have been with other types of communication that can apply to a virtual environment. So I think that is fundamentally, it's not the technology has not taken, it's not a matter of the technology in 1 year has changed significantly. I think what has changed significantly is the expectation and experience, the widely adopted experience on using this type of technology to communicate. That's it. And then the fact that and we'll come to this later, but I just think that the current situation, which seemed to be long term, that I don't think that is 9 to 5 days per week, the best way for us to work. I don't in an office every day. And if it's not, and it looks like many organizations are going towards the fact that maybe we don't need everyone in the same office every day, then we need to put tools together for them to meet and for them to engage, and for internally to build culture, externally for people to get to know the company. And the market readiness is just, it has really changed.
I think you're exactly right there, Joakim. I think you're looking at a situation where the technologies have been there for a long time, but really the perceptions of those using the technologies and their openness to embracing video as a viable alternative, and in creating environments where video can be incorporated with other interactive technologies, that really now individuals are more open than ever before to experimenting and sampling these capabilities, because it's the best thing that they have available. And they're finding out that there is some there when it comes to virtual event capabilities, and looking at these capabilities with an open mind now does reflect a new way to begin using these technologies, even after the pandemic concludes. And one thing that we've been looking at Wainhouse Research is really redefining the technologies that enable these virtual events. Really, it's a new form of communication. We're bringing the video and interactive capabilities of a classic unified communication solution and wrapping them together with marketing and social media aspects of outbound marketing platforms. And we see this merger of technologies as a new form of enterprise communications capabilities. Much like you have video collaboration, you have web conferencing. This is a truly new sector, a new segment of the market forged by the unique interaction or integration of a range of this range of technologies. And we're calling these cloud engagement platforms. And essentially, these cloud engagement platforms make it possible to bring together the technologies that really create the opportunity for having a fully interactive platform, a fully interactive event where individuals can talk, exchange messages, meet new people, and also where administrators of that event can help manage things in a way that helps their organization derive business benefit from assembling those types of events. So when we're looking at cloud engagement platforms, there's really four key elements that go into making cloud engagement work. The red arrows here represent those marketing style applications or features that must be part of a cloud engagement platform. And these must-haves include the ability to register individuals so that you know who's attending the event, and the ability to have analytics, measuring what people do during an event in order to track the business benefit associated with their attendance. Now, the blue arrows in this chart represent some of the UC-oriented or interactive elements of a typical communications platform. One of those would be presence detection. Now, that's literally the ability to have dial tone, that you recognize that somebody's there and you're able to initiate an interaction with that individual. Also, what we see from these platforms, as we talked about before, one of the key elements being able to enrich on a video basis. And that includes having a one-to-many main stage presentation like we're doing now. But many platforms, including 6Connects, also offers the ability to not only attend these large sessions, but to interact with individuals in one-on-one or small group video chats, really creating a new type of environment for individuals to chart their own adventure, if you will, in terms of consuming content or interacting with others also attending an event as best suits their needs. Now, this type of cloud engagement platform enables a wide range of capabilities. It can be all the way from webcasts like we're doing right now to interactive events, which are more small scale type events, maybe 50 to 100 people, where there's an opportunity to have a main stage presentation coupled with interactive opportunities. And then also what we're calling virtual hubs. And this is the equivalent of the recreation of the online trade show in an online environment. So there's a lot of applications out there. And so, Ruben, I was wondering if you could walk me through a little bit when we look at the 6Connects platform, we think about all these different types of applications that are enabled under a platform, a cloud engagement platform like that which 6Connects offers. Walk me through your virtual environment and some of the applications that you're seeing, and then we'll get Joakim to pitch in as well to talk a little bit about what he's seeing on his side of the pond.
Yeah, happy to, Steve, and we'll also address a little bit on the question that was asked from the audience around value. The misconception that a virtual environment or a virtual experience are all made the same or all equal is just simply not true, right? So when someone says I've attended a virtual experience and I thought it was fantastic, or B, it lacked X, Y, or Z, they're not all the same, right? And each will have its area that of expertise, that they may be an area of focus, and others might be focused in other given areas. And so the key learning here is ultimately we're all not made equal, right? So consumers should definitely evaluate their options and not just assume that a virtual environment experience is the same. So for us, in an approach, as you see here on this slide, Steve, it's frankly our approach to an open universe. We are driving value around bringing a mass amount of content, a mass amount of audience, and then all that behavior within our platform. And we recognize that a user might have their own specific tools that they currently use in-house and that are tied to whatever processes they are within their organization. And we have an approach very agnostic in nature. So if you are tied to some kind of lead generation marketing campaign that involves some live streaming tools, bring them all into our platform. If it's involved in some kind of social media walls or platforms, bring them into our environment. The webcast platforms, as you referenced, Steve, doing this now. Bring it in.
What you're telling me is the more the merrier, right?
Exactly. It's a complete open universe, and obviously we have options. If they don't have, we'll leverage our own products accordingly. But we're trying to build a conference room in the cloud per se, right? So the living room for all utilizations within the environment, which ultimately drives the actionable metrics that a customer would want to see.
And Joakim, when we look at one of the questions we have on the from our audience right now is asking us a little bit about product roadmap and what type of innovation can we expect from Six Connects in the next few months. So I think that there's two things I'd like you to address. First, let's first talk about some of the applications that you're seeing from the European side of the ledger, and then maybe after that I'll follow up with the Q&A question regarding product roadmap. But first, let's talk applications. Is it just industry trade shows, or are people looking at a variety of different ways to put this technology to work?
Yeah, I think we see people coming to us very often with a very specific event requirement. And we've been very conscious in how we have addressed the market this year in not trying to go away from that, but certainly trying to engage deeper with a client and saying, yes, you can come. And we, hence the sort of the comment that Ruben said, look at it as your virtual conference center in the cloud, and you're renting this venue. And if you think about it like that, you rent the venue for 12 months. And that's sort of the kind of engagement that we want to see. Then you can say, well, in March, I'm going to put on this type of event. And in April, I'm going to put on this type of event. And the engagement that we get with our clients and the ideas that comes up is just so much greater than what we saw a couple of years ago. So yeah, a lot of clients come to us with a very specific event requirement, and the first engagement typically come around very sort of traditional lead generation marketing event, internal comms event, SKO for your sales team. But what we're now seeing is once you've engaged that, and you've had that first experience, you say, well, wow, we can do something completely different now. And we're seeing clients that are using it for really sort of building culture. And I think here is something that I think these type of virtual environments have a big role to play in that, where we're taking away the office to a large or a small degree. I think that we can all agree on that the office 5 days per week, 9 or 10 hours per day, that's not how we will work going forward. And then we need to create this meeting place, and that's what we're seeing. So we're seeing very creative use on how can we have a corporate party, how can we sort of visualize some of the fundraising or some of the sort of work that we're doing as a company in the community, and so yeah, but I think if they come come to us with an event, but then once they see it, really explore what they can do.
Yeah, I think if people take a step back and say, how and why did we gather for any reason in the past pre-COVID? There's an analogous online application where virtual event platforms and cloud engagement technologies can help make that experience better. whether it's during the pandemic itself or even after we get past this period of time. There's going to be a role for cloud engagement and virtual event capabilities on a moving forward basis. Now, people are always looking, Joakim, at what the next big thing is. We've had a couple questions about artificial intelligence, question about product roadmap. Is there anything specifically that, say, over the next 3 to 6 months, we might be expecting from 6Connex in terms of enhancing that experience and maybe broadening the palette of applications that people can think about when using the platform?
Yeah, I think, to start off, I guess this is how I can really get into trouble by saying too much.
Well, that's why we're putting your feet to the fire, buddy.
CTO emailing me right now.
Yeah.
We, of course, see what's happening in the market. There were some comments on what are some of the other platforms are doing and some of the newcomers in the market. And that is great to see someone that is coming up and bringing in some elements that we have not maybe traditionally used in the past. I think we remain, our core will remain on we're ISO certified, we're scalable, we're reliable, we're not sitting in a single data center. So that's part of our core, that we're an enterprise offering that maybe some of these newer companies are not. And I think when you look at the questions that we often get around GDPR and other compliance questions, this still remains a really key part. And but yes, we are going to, of course, develop our platform. I think the idea of increasing the engagement, that layer that I mentioned on, I think we're very strong when it comes to the visual layer on how it looks, the feel, the engagement. We're very good. We're open, like we see on this slide. We can bring in lots of different technology, but the engagement side is certainly something that we will look into, and then there are development coming on matchmaking and allowing the users to engage more. So that engagement piece in different ways, if that is sort of looking at what is the path that someone take inside of a virtual event, so looking at what their agenda should be versus someone else's agenda, matchmaking, these are things that will come from as new in our platform. And then we will continue to invest in our openness around what you see on the platform here, and integration with Zapier, etc., that we brought out, that just allows for a lot more engagement with other tools inside of our virtual environment.
Hey, Steve, if I could just quickly jump on that.
Absolutely, Ruben.
Yeah, so I was going to say, look, first and foremost, what the acceleration of the pandemic has allowed us to do is deliver hundreds of large-scale events, and from that comes a lot of feedback, a lot of use cases that we can evaluate and implement. And so, digesting some of that feedback, we're invested heavily in our technology area. We will have onboarded roughly 50 people through this year just in technology alone to continue to build on our roadmap. And it really is around 4 different areas. The first one is flat out scaling, which we just last month launched our 3rd instance of AWS, and we did that out in the East Coast of the US. As use cases continue to develop, scaling becomes a very critical piece of it. The second that Joakim touched on is around the whole visual layer aspect of it. And what hundreds of events have allowed us to do is update a whole lot of graphics, associated possibilities, templates that we can continue to leverage for a better user experience. And then around the engagement layer, Joakim touched a lot on that. There's a huge investment on our end because we feel the engagement layer is frankly the biggest ROI and allows for a perpetual virtual environment for that given customer. And then the last piece ultimately is all around the actionable metrics associated with the behaviors with our platform. Those are the main areas that we're all in and investing heavily towards our roadmap and And for the person who asked the question, we'll be rolling out a visual over the next 6 months, what our roadmap's going to entail. And obviously we continue to be agile as our market is scaling really, really fast, and we're trying to be ahead of the curve.
Now we have a question really complimentary of the graphic that we put on the screen here, talking about 6Connect's capabilities. The audience member is asking whether these platforms are able to integrate with 6Connects, or do they simply link out to or open a new tab in when you're experiencing them. So that's a question about the level of integration for these bubbles that are extending from the 6Connect's capabilities in the shaded bubbles.
Most of these would sit inside of our environment, so they would not be link out.
Excellent.
A few of them put blockers for us to integrate with them. But most of these would sit inside of our environment.
So I think one of the things that you talked about before, Ruben, was the idea of scaling. And going back to our survey results from last week, from that survey, more than 2,000 enterprise end users, 42% reported that they are very likely to attend an industry trade show on a virtual basis in 2021. So talk about the need for scale, given that type of likely demand for attending events on a virtual basis. What do you see? What do you see happening? What are the challenges specifically for trade show providers as they look at their opportunities for the coming year?
Well, ultimately we see three key values of a virtual experience by a customer all around traditional economic impact, right? That's involved in a physical environment. You have carbon footprint impact. You have inclusive agendas, ultimately with broader reach, right? So I would say as we continue to grow and use cases develop, and the market continues to realize that the broad reach of their communication can hit, it becomes a critical component of our industry, to be very frank. So as we evolve into more of a hybrid approach, whenever the new norm comes, ultimately we don't sit here and say that virtual environments are going to replace every single physical environment. But what we're saying is that ultimately they're just going to be called events. There's not going to be this thing of this is virtual, this is physical, this is hybrid. It's an event. And an organization is going to want to probably bring in some physical presence, but you would almost sell yourself short if you do not provide the opportunity to extend that reach virtually as well too, and leverage the value that each of those two type of strategies can enable. So as organizations begin to build on that, and Steve, as our industry, as many analysts say, will grow to roughly 800 billion over the next decade, scaling becomes an enormous requirement as part of this process, of which we are continue to prepare for.
Yeah, one of the key parameters that event planners always point to is how many people showed up to an event, how many people did I impact, how many people could I deliver a message to, and literally the notion of taking an in-person event in a post-pandemic world and adding an online component to that, delivering what we're calling now a hybrid event, but what Ruben you're calling will just be an event someday. People are saying that they'll likely participate in more of these types of gatherings if they have that online component to take it.
Uh-oh. Looks like we may have
another question from the. I'm sorry.
Steve,
I think we lost you the last minute there.
Okay.
Yeah, right about 10 seconds or so, Steve.
Okay. I was heading into, and I assume I'm back now. So sorry about that. But in our Wainhouse survey, we had a question where we basically asked individuals, agree, disagree. I would attend more conferences overall if given the option to participate remotely. And we see that almost 1/3 of the respondent audience, 31%, strongly agree with the notion that they would attend more conferences if given online options. 35% said they somewhat agree. So for event planners who are eager to build audiences for their conferences and create a larger venue for their conference participants to deliver their message, having that online extension represents a tool that will allow some events to expand their reach, expand their impact over time. And I'll throw this up for a jump ball between Ruben or Joakim. Which one of you, what are the challenges, or if I'm an event planner and I'm thinking that, I really have to integrate this online component into my in-person event. What are some considerations? What are some issues that should be top of mind for me as I'm contemplating that issue of making my event a hybrid event?
Are you, Joakim?
Okay. I think we here have to, if I look at sort of what the conversations we have with our clients at the moment, this would differentiate maybe sort of the short to midterm and then on a longer scale. So short to midterm, this is an insurance policy. I think just making sure that your event is not completely canceled. So that's certainly what we've seen, that people take this up and are planning for and looking at when they think they can start to do in-person event. It will not be to the scale that there have been before. So it's the ability to still keep scale and the ability to still run your events. I think on a longer term, there is a lot of work that we're doing now to make sure that that you're experiencing one event. We can say that we have a hybrid events today. Here's your physical event, here's your virtual event, here's your virtual event audience, your physical event audience. But I think the true worth or the true value is when they both become attendees of the event. Some people will attend virtually, some people will exhibit virtually, some people will attend, and so both exhibitors and attendees will have the ability to be present either physically or virtually. So, and there you need to really look at sort of what are the right interface for doing that, and that is not the same that you have today. So those are the two answers: the short to midterm, and then the long term. The long term, there will be a lot more work being done on really making it one experience, no matter where you are.
Yeah, I think we're in for a period of significant change for event planners as they consider the best ways to incorporate online capabilities within their traditional events. But even traditional business communicators are finding the need for leveraging virtual environments to support remote work. We've had a lot of issues emerge as a result of the COVID crisis. More than half of those that we surveyed in Wainhouse Research say that they feel more socially isolated as a result of work from home quarantines. Likewise, 56% say that their work performance is optimized when working in an office full time. So more than half thinking that maybe they're not quite living up to their normal work standards when working on a remote basis. And 4 out of 5 of our survey response agree that video meetings help people working from home to stay more engaged with their colleagues. So one way to foster improved productivity, better engagement, is to leverage video in a more effective way. And part of the approach to doing that is making video-enriched virtual events a part of the process. I know this is an issue near and dear to Joakim's heart, but maybe we get some input from you first, Ruben, then we'll go to Joakim. Are we seeing virtual events start to play a role in venues that are not just trade shows, that are more day-to-day business communications?
Without question, Stephen, this is a perfectly good example of some of the learnings that as you continue to deliver on multiple use cases throughout the summer and into the fall. Ultimately, this is an area that has no doubt been a trending use case, and that's all around the opportunity of if the world is now more accepting of remote employees, the new norm, it becomes incredibly challenging for an organization, specifically an HR organization, to be able to develop and probably more importantly, maintain a company culture during this transition. And for us, we frankly are almost 90% virtual, right? We have representatives from all over the world. We ourselves are faced with that challenge, and with under Joakim's leadership and several from the team, we ourselves built our own environment for our organization that we use on a daily basis as our what I normally like to say as our corporate office, our headquarter office, and within that environment, we have all kinds of engagement activities between employees, whether it's scheduled workouts or sharing of playlists, or as we continue to advance on HR confidential even data that can be shared within that environment. And frankly, even just last week, Joakim and many from his team hosted our Halloween party there in our environment. So the use cases continue to expand, and this is a very good example of learnings and leveraging the learnings on new trends.
Joakim, your thoughts?
Yeah, I see it. I definitely sort of expanded use cases, and I think it comes from people haven't had a widespread experience of virtual events previously, and now that exists. And when you've seen it, that's typically it's the second or the third engagement with us when we see them really sort of pushing the boundaries a little bit and changing the use cases, rather than sort of what it would have been the more traditional use cases for trade show marketing, lead generation, training, etc. But now really sort of getting into building cultures, university engagement. So how can you get some teams from around the world coming in and engagement with universities from around the world, creating different competitions on what, and I think that's where, if you just do it using a website and submitting videos and holding Zoom sessions, it is not engaging enough. You need to help the attendees of creating more a richer experience that sort of, if you have I saw some great examples of clients creating sort of a 3 o'clock on a Friday after their 3-day event. All of a sudden a new dance hall appeared, and so they hosted had a virtual DJ who was playing for them, and they were all dancing away. So I think it's really sort of it's changing completely, and it's changing with the experience of having done your first or your second, and then seeing the possibility of widening the scope.
And certainly, this is going to be an issue that's going to stay with us for a while. 43% of those surveyed by Wainhouse say that it's going to be at least until sometime in the first half of 2021 or later until they return to their normal work environment. So there's a big swath of workers who are going to be dealing with for months, if not multiple quarters ahead. And 2/3 of our respondents say that they expect their company to encourage more remote work even after the pandemic is over. So this is an issue that you think, well, we can just ignore it for a while and it'll go away. This is going to be an ongoing issue that organizations are going to be dealing with for quite some time.
I think it's only an issue for the three of us here. And when I look at my au pair, who's a 21-year-old from Italy, and it's sometimes difficult to get a conversation one-to-one. But if I send something on WhatsApp, the answer is there immediately, right? So it's also about organizations adopting to what is the reality that the people that are coming up in these organizations, they don't communicate the way that was done in the past, right?
So now I'm going to go to our lightning round of suggested strategies for getting most from virtual platforms. We'll hit Q&A a little bit after this. We want to hit these quickly. My suggested strategy is work on identifying the virtual event evangelists within your organization. Get those role models who will be able to embrace the technology, illustrate or show how it's going to work. And as users become more familiar with seeing really good presenters make the most of virtual event platforms, they'll find ways to think about using the technology in their own day-to-day communications applications. So my suggested strategy, find those role models, promote them heavily within your organization, and illustrate how the technology is going to work. Ruben, your thoughts on the suggested strategy?
Mine are pretty fundamental, Steve, and first and foremost is around the creativity around use cases. We went into this around virtual environment use cases around sales and marketing lead generation campaigns, represented roughly 70 or 80% of our use cases, and we're surely seeing a wide variety of use cases develop. So keep that in mind, that just because it wasn't leveraged the way it normally did in the past doesn't necessarily mean that's the path forward. And then around the second piece is a little bit around the engagement. We have to align ourselves with the best possibilities on how best you can drive large audiences around and large content, ultimately around engagement. So identify areas that best address engagement, and you will make that environment in a perpetual state versus just a single instance or a single environment instance. Drive towards that perpetual environment opportunity because it can continue to deliver results. You can continue to upload content. You can continue to bring in more audiences. You can continue to get more analytics around what is being viewed or downloaded, etc. So aim for that perpetual environment, not a single instance. And then ultimately, I harped a little bit around the HR company culture use case. The trending is going to continue. Think outside the box. There's really endless possibilities. Our platform is literally 100% customizable, all configurable. It can represent the specific brand you want and focus on areas you want. So think outside the box on areas of opportunity, all for the purpose of driving audience into the environment.
Joakim, your final shot.
Yeah, I'll be brief here. So I think I mentioned my points before. So this really just a reminder. I think we see a real sort of hallelujah moment when people are going through their first experience with a virtual event. So the fear and the reality it's not matching up. Virtual events are proving more engaging than what people feared, and the use cases can be wider. And the real key here is don't just do it event by event, but really take a long-term view and think about it, like I said, a virtual conference center in the cloud. You're renting this venue, now use the venue in a multiple different ways over the course of an extended period.
Well, we have just, we're coming up to the top of the hour, so we only have a few minutes left for questions. We did answer questions throughout the event, though. So, but we do have a couple more left, and I'll push this first one towards you, Ruben. what advice do you have for exhibitors in the virtual environment to best engage with their buyers and see more benefits for their investments? So exhibitors in the virtual environment, how do they really capitalize on things in the virtual realm to make sure they get the bang for their virtual buck, so to speak?
Well, ultimately, a lot will rely on the partnership with the host of the event or that specific environment. The ideal thing for me around the expo, it's still around the engagement. It's got to be a component around the engagement. It's got to be updated content that you want to ensure continue represents the brand you want in that expo. But the partnership is critical, because your traditional expo booth or expo sponsor, normally in a physical environment, is probably 2, 3, and some conferences or maybe 4 days in a given week. And the opportunity here is over time, right? We're seeing a lot of events now that there's no reason to do 2, 3, 4 days back to back, and they'll scatter them, whether it's on a monthly basis or weekly basis, etc. So I go back to this perpetual environment. It's a longer lasting opportunity for that expo sponsor to be able to represent their brand, represent their content, ultimately for that engagement with that possible consumer or user.
So Joakim, another one of these questions, and probably the last question we're able to, well, we might be able to get one more, but this individual writes, often virtual events are simply a series of webinars, roundtables where engagement is often limited to Q&A sessions. From your experience, how and what capabilities can be built in your platform to create a multi-sensory experience to appeal to people's emotions, to enhance engagement and personalize the experience? So what can you do beyond just putting a webinar on the screen to make the engagement really sing?
Yeah, I think you really have to think about that pathway that you want to take your attendee on, right? So build in elements in the agenda where if you have an agenda that is back-to-back webinars, well, there you go. There you have your event. If you build in your agenda that here's a gap for networking with the peers, show a little video. Here's how you find who else is on the platform, and here's how you can engage with them. You can even do one-to-one video chat with them. So it's all about building it into the agenda, providing, of course, the tools for doing it. The same with sort of integrating social media walls or bringing in social media, and then maybe providing some incentives and doing some treasure hunts or leaderboards where those behaviors are promoted. So I think that's really it. It's in the planning. You have to, from the start, bring it in and think about how you can make it a little bit fun.
Well, Joakim, Ruben, you folks, you both of you have been a fount of knowledge regarding the virtual event space. I'm sure that we're going to have, we have a ton more questions that we can't get to, but I'm sure the marketing team from 6Connects will follow up with those individuals directly following the event. And certainly, if you have questions that maybe come to mind even after the conclusion of this event, we encourage you to email the folks at 6Connects at marketing@6connects.com, and they'll get responses to you directly. And that is true for the on-demand replay as much as it is for the live session itself. That's all the time. We're at the top of the hour now. My thanks again to the 6Connects team for sponsoring and participating in this webinar. And I appreciate you taking the time to visit with us and to learn a little bit more about the virtual event space. For 6Connects and Wainhouse Research, I'm Steve Vonder. Thanks for your time.